Hello friends, this is your friend back with a new fanfic. What if Naruto, banished by Tsunade, became the Mist's forbidden dark guardian? Part 1. If you like this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Now, let's start. Chapter 1, Banishment. Naruto was having a terrible day so far. First, he had arrived back to the Leaf Village only to find out he was banished. Secondly, he found out that since Tsunade was not sworn in yet, she couldn't help him out in any way. Thirdly, he found out that he had to leave the village by midnight, tonight. I just can't believe this, shouted Naruto in frustration. Naruto, around the age of 15, was walking down the street in a rage, glaring at the path in front of him. He had blonde spiky hair, deep blue eyes and 3 whisker-like marks on each of his cheeks. He wore an orange jumpsuit and was about 1.5 meters in height with a small build. I do nothing but give my all for this village, and what does it do? Throw it in my face and kick me out. Guess it's a good thing I'm leaving, I might finally be able to get some respect, thought Naruto, as he arrived at his lopsided and rundown apartment complex, which only he inhabited. Naruto let himself in, closing the door behind him, before slumping down onto his frayed brown couch. Naruto sat there thinking about what he was going to do, before he heard a knock at his door. Who is it?" groaned Naruto. "It's Kakashi," replied a voice. "Sai, come in, the door is open," said Naruto despondently. A man wearing a mask and a leaf forehead protector covering his left eye, who was garbed in the standard leaf shinobi outfit, along with iron-plated gloves, entered the dwelling. "Hey Naruto, how are you holding up?" asked Kakashi, aloof as ever. "How do you think?" responded Naruto bitterly. Kakashi for his part allowed some of his sadness to show, indicated by his small sigh. "Sensei, if you could only see what they are doing to your son, you would turn over in your grave," thought Kakashi. "Cheer up Naruto, you might be getting banished, but I've got something here that might raise your spirits," said Kakashi, as he pulled out 3 small pieces of paper. "Paper? Wow," said Naruto sarcastically. "No, not just paper, chakra paper," said Kakashi with an eye smile. "What does it do?" asked Naruto, mildly interested as noted by him sitting up a bit straighter. "Well, you know how Sasuke can use fire jutsu and I can use lightning, well, among other things," questioned Kakashi. "Yeah," replied Naruto. "Well, this will let me know what your affinity is. After all, I was going to train you all in your affinities soon, but, well, with your banishment, this can no longer happen," said Kakashi with a sheepish chuckle. "Gee, thanks," replied Naruto sourly. "So I figured as a going-away present, I would test your affinity and give you a jutsu for that affinity, so you have at least some guidance concerning elemental jutsu before you leave," said Kakashi, causing Naruto to brighten up. "Really? Thanks a lot, Kakashi-sensei," said Naruto happily, as he grabbed a piece of paper. "Now all you have to do is pump some chakra into it and it will reveal your affinity, although if you were lucky, you might have 2, said Kakashi. Naruto concentrated and focused his chakra into the paper, at which point, it split into 6 pieces. 1 crumbled, 1 became soaked, and another burnt up in a flame. Although that surprised Kakashi, the next few shocked him. 1 turned into lava and hardened, 1 dissolved out of existence, and the last piece turned into ice. "So how was that, Kakashi-sensei?" asked Naruto curiously. Naruto, you wouldn't mind doing that again, would you?" asked Kakashi, as he held out another piece of the chakra paper. Naruto just shrugged and did it again, getting the same result as before. "Well?" asked Naruto. Kakashi snapped out of his stupor and looked at Naruto. "Well, it would seem as though you possess 4 out of the 5 basic affinities and have 3 advanced nature bloodlines, lava release, boil release, and ice release," said Kakashi in mild awe. "Wow, I'm so awesome," said Naruto. "For once, I agree with you Naruto, those natures are all very impressive. With some training, you could become a real powerhouse," said Kakashi. At this Naruto's excitement deflated a little. "But, if I'm being banished, who will train me?" asked Naruto in sadness. "Well, I did say I would give you a jutsu for your affinities, although for the lava, ice and boil release, you will probably have to go to the mist to find someone to train you," said Kakashi. "All right, thanks a lot," said Naruto. "Oh, and Naruto, take care of yourself," I know I didn't teach you much, but I do know that you have the guts to never give up and that will take you far," said Kakashi with an eye smile, before he used a body flicker and left Naruto to pack. Line break. Naruto was packed up and ready to leave. He had a small backpack on his back and a few scrolls attached to his pants. As he walked down the street, he remembered all the pranks he had pulled. As he passed his favorite ramen stand, he started to feel depressed knowing that he will never get to eat there again. "Oh well, nothing I can do now, I'm just going to have to do my best to become the strongest," thought Naruto, as he approached the gate. As he arrived, he saw there were 5 figures waiting for him. Jiraiya, Tsunade, Shizune, Kakashi and Iruka had all come to wish him well. Jiraiya stepped forward first and gave Naruto 3 scrolls and a book. "Naruto, those scrolls contain all I know about sealing techniques as well as letter from your parents and I assume, some of their skills which made them famous. I was going to tell you about them when you reached Junin as I am your godfather, but now that you are banished, well, I guess at least now you can learn about your family," said Jiraiya solemnly. Naruto was slightly upset, yet also happy that he found out that Jiraiya was his godfather. He understood that he had lots of important duties as a Sannin and a spymaster and therefore couldn't have been there for him when he was a child. Naruto hugged him and said, "Thanks, godfather." Jiraiya hugged him back before letting go. "Also, that book I gave you was my first ever written. Both your parents seemed to like it as they named you after the hero," said Jiraiya. Naruto's eyes glistened with tears as he was overcome with emotion, but he didn't let a single tear fall. He nodded, as Jiraiya stepped back, and Tsunade came forward. Tsunade knelt down to Naruto's level and gave him a deep hug. "I know that this village banishing you isn't fair, but all this means is that you have to become a great shinobi to show them what they missed out on." "Okay," said Tsunade as she stood back up. "Don't worry, I'll make sure that this village will never forget that they lost Naruto Uzumaki," said Naruto with fire in his eyes. As Tsunade stepped back, Shizune came forward and hugged Naruto as well, and gave him a small medical kit. Iruka then came forward and hugged Naruto as well. "Naruto, make sure you take care of yourself." "Okay," said Iruka. Naruto nodded and smiled. Lastly, Kakashi came forward with 4 scrolls. "Well, I did say I would give you a jutsu for each of your affinities, but understandably, I have no lava, ice or boil jutsus. Instead, I've got a wind, fire, water and earth technique for you. Wind style, great breakthrough, fire style, fireball jutsu, water style, water wall and earth style, hidden mole jutsu. The first 2 are offensive and if you combine them together with your clones, will be very hard to stop. The other 2 are for defensive purposes," said Kakashi as he handed them over. "Thanks Kakashi-sensei," said Naruto. Naruto put the scrolls in his backpack and with a final wave, walked towards the gate and out of the village. "There goes the truest inheritor of the will of fire," said Iruka. "You're right, and this village can't even see it, stupid fools," said Jiraiya, before he walked away. Line break. In an underground base. Line break. "Well, Lord Danzo, when shall we make our move on the Kyuubi Jinchūriki?" asked a masked individual wearing what appeared to be the standard Anbu uniform. The only difference was the mask was plain white, with no decorations or symbols. "Soon, first we must let it get a decent distance away from the leaf so as to not draw suspicion to ourselves or the Jinchūriki," said Danzo. Danzo appeared to be a frail, old man. He had black, shaggy hair, and his right eye was bandaged. Danzo also had an X-shaped scar on his chin. He wore a white shirt, with a black robe over the top of it covering his feet, to just over his right shoulder. Despite his decrepit appearance, Danzo was anything but weak, having orchestrated Naruto's expulsion from the village with ease, and it was almost time for him to strike. Line break. Naruto had trudged through almost a kilometer of grassland, before he decided to take a break. He sat down and pulled out a scroll which had the word, "Father," written on it. Naruto tried to open the scroll, but it wouldn't budge. "What the hell, pervy sage?" shouted Naruto in anger, which quickly turned to a wince when he cut his hand on a low-hanging tree branch. Naruto cradled his hand as a drop of blood fell onto the scroll. Fortunately, as he was angry, he was subconsciously channeling chakra, so it opened. Guess I need to use my blood to open these scrolls," thought Naruto, as he started reading. Dear Naruto. Naruto, I am your father, Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage. First off, I am truly sorry for sealing the fox inside you. I can only hope the village sees you as the hero I wanted you to be seen as. However, I am also the Hokage and not entirely naive. If you were treated badly, I am sorry and only hope you don't blame the villagers. They are ignorant and fearful and unable to understand anything as complex as sealing. In fact, your mother is the only reason I became any good at sealing, but I digress. I have left you the notes for my Flying Thunder God technique in the Rasengan. I hope that Jiraiya has taught you the Rasengan by now. My ultimate goal was to merge an element with it, so now I leave that task up to you, son. Know that no matter what, I will always be proud of you. Even if you decide to turn on the leaf, I won't blame you. Although as Hokage I would be against it, as your father I would understand. Sincerely, Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage. Naruto was quite surprised his father was the fourth Hokage, but honestly, it made a lot of sense to Naruto, as why would a random child be trusted with such great power? He then quickly searched for the other scroll which had the word, mother, written on it. He then bit his thumb and swiped it over the word mother and pushed chakra into the scroll with his bloody hand, causing it to open. Dear Naruto. Hey son, it's your mom. Oh, wait, you probably got that from the scroll. Anyway, my name is Kushina Uzumaki. I hope you didn't suffer too much in your life, because unlike your father, I know people won't accept you and will fear you, seeing as how I was the second host of the Fox and saw how the few who knew and weren't my friends acted towards me. If you turn against the village I won't blame you, they probably deserved it. Anyway, I left you some of my unique Uzumaki sealing techniques that both your father and Jiraiya would die to have. I have also entrusted you with all of my sealing knowledge, being the last of the Uzumaki clan. Sorry that you were stuck with such a burden, and even if your father is an idiot, I hope in time you can come to forgive us. Love, Kushina Uzumaki. Naruto was crying slightly as he now knew who his parents were and that they loved him. Naruto saw it was getting late and decided to camp there for the night. He then pulled out the 4 scrolls Kakashi gave him and made 3 clones. He handed them the fire, water and earth scrolls and took the wind scroll himself. Okay, you guys read through this and tell me what it says to do when you're done. Ordered Naruto. You got it, boss, said the 3 in unison. After an hour of reading, all had finished reading their respective scrolls. Okay, give me the basics of it, said Naruto. The one who read the water scroll went to speak before the one who read the fire one interrupted. Well, it says here you have to do a special exercise to be able to mold fire-natured chakra, said the clone. I was also going to say that about water-natured chakra before I was cut off, said the other clone, as it glared at the clone which had just spoken. Naruto just watched as 2 of his clones glared at the other before the clone which read the earth scroll pushed them both. Both fell forward, jabbing themselves into a low-hanging tree branch and dispelled, causing the clone and the original Naruto to stagger from an information overload. Whoa, did you just feel all that? Asked the last clone. Yeah, dispel yourself, ordered the original. The clone dispelled and Naruto was hit with another burst of information. Naruto then gave a face-splitting grin and used his signature jutsu. Shadow Clone Jutsu, said Naruto as 400 clones appeared. Half the clones grabbed a leaf for each of them. 100 tried to split them while the other 100 tried to burn them. The other set of clones also split up into 2 groups, with one group trying to meld with the earth while the others each tried to make the water rise up from a lake nearby. The original Naruto started to do a series of push-ups and squats to improve his physical strength. Line break. 3 hours later. Line break. Most of the clones had dispelled, having made little to no progress as of yet. Naruto himself was almost unconscious due to the intense physical and mental strain he had placed on himself. Huff, well pant, I guess huff, I'm done, for now, said Naruto as he passed out. Line break. The next day. Line break. Naruto woke up refreshed and ready to go, but therein lay the problem. Aw man, I don't know where the village hidden in the mist is, said Naruto. He decided that since he knew where Wave was, he would go there for now and hopefully get instructions from there. He was passing the place where his team had met Zabuza for the first time, when 2 Anbu with plain white masks dropped down in front of him. Naruto Uzumaki, you are to come with us, said one of the Anbu. Wait a minute, I got banished, which means the leaf doesn't want me. What are you trying to pull? Asked Naruto with narrowed eyes. The Anbu instead of answering quickly made hand signs before calling his jutsu. Water style, water whip jutsu. A thin piece of water extended from the Anbu's hand which he then flicked, which caused the whip to lunge at Naruto. Naruto jumped back and made his signature hand sign, causing 12 clones to appear. 8 rushed the Anbu, 4 for each of them. The 4 who stayed back started to make a Rasengan but found that with 3 clones making 1 Rasengan, with the 4th maintaining its shape, it came out almost twice as big. All 4 charged at one of the Anbu and slammed the big Rasengan into him. Giant Rasengan, shouted the 4 clones, as the Anbu was plowed into the ground and killed almost instantly. The rest of the clones converged on the last remaining Anbu and attacked. 5 kicked him up into the air while saying, Naruto. 2 clones then jumped up and formed a Rasengan which they slammed into the airborne Anbu while shouting, Rasengan slam. Which destroyed the Anbu. As the dust cleared, a smashed log was revealed. Crap, said the original, as all his clones were incinerated in a ball of fire. The Anbu then charged at Naruto, drawing a tipless Tonto. Naruto pulled out a kunai which he pushed against the slash of the Tonto, but found he was being overpowered. Naruto then jumped back and summoned 1 clone to his side, who he had throw him to the side. The ABNU slashed the clone causing it to dispel. Crap, I don't have that many techniques to use against this guy aside from those he has already seen. Thought Naruto in a panic. Naruto quickly did a few hand signs he saw in his fire and coincidentally, the earth scroll, hoping for the best. Fire style, fireball jutsu. Called Naruto. The Anbu having heard this made a wall of water but, what neither expected, was for a blob of lava to be launched instead of fire. The molten rock easily broke through the water due to its insane temperature and slammed into the Anbu, burning a hole through his torso where his lungs would have been, killing him instantly. Naruto breathed heavily at having to use such a powerful jutsu, and then threw up, knowing he had just killed 2 people quite gruesomely. Line break. Naruto journeyed on, barely able to stay awake until he arrived at Tsunade's house. He knocked on the door and waited before Tsunade opened the door. Knowing he would be relatively safe for now, Naruto passed out on Tsunade, who quickly called for Inari and Tsuna. Line break. Lord Danzo, it seems as though the Kyuubi jinchūriki evaded capture. Said the same figure which had reported to Danzo last time. Danzo frowned slightly, before closing his eyes. Send out 4 this time, we must capture it before it gets too far away. Said Danzo. The figure bowed, before leaving to fulfill Danzo's command. Soon I shall have all I need to become Hokage and protect the leaf. Thought Danzo as he closed his eyes. Also, I own Naruto Rasengan Slam. Chapter 2 Naruto's Growth. Naruto awoke to find himself in the same room his sensei had been placed in previously during their mission to the Land of Waves. The memory of what Naruto had done before his dash to wave caught up with him, causing him to feel sickened and ashamed. Naruto sat up and ran his hands through his head. I killed them. I really killed them. Brutally at that, thought Naruto, as his grip on his hair tightened. Naruto could not accept that because of him, 2 people were now dead. Does this mean that I really am a monster? Wondered Naruto in trepidation. He was interrupted from his musings by the sound of footsteps. Tsuna looked no different than the last time Naruto saw him, aside from the fact that his face held a worried frown. How are you feeling, kid? Asked Tsuna. Honestly, like a murderer. Said Naruto, as he gripped the thin sheet sprawled around his legs instead of his hair. Tsuna frowned at the response, but Naruto, who was staring down at his sheet, missed it completely. I don't see a murderer. Said Tsuna, prompting Naruto to raise his head slightly. You also didn't see the lifeless body of a person who you just killed, laying there on the floor, spilling blood out of a massive open chest cavity. Replied Naruto in a haunted tone. Tsuna grimaced at such a gruesome and vivid picture, but knew that if he didn't snap Naruto out of his depression now, he may take his own life if someone didn't help him, as the ninja was highly unpredictable. Look kid, I've been around for many years now and I've seen and heard a lot. Said Tsuna in a slightly reflective tone, which prompted Naruto to look him in the face. People kill, and people get killed, it is a way of life. Said Tsuna solemnly. Naruto seemed to be on the verge of crawling inside himself, so Tsunade quickened his words, so as to be able to reach Naruto before he became a shell of a person. The point I'm trying to make is that these things will happen, but they don't make you any less human, said Tsunade. Naruto looked at him with a glazed look before speaking. Have you ever killed someone? Naruto asked. No, but many have. They didn't become shells of their former selves, such as your sensei, or did you forget about that? Replied Tsunade. Truthfully, Naruto had forgotten. Not just about that though, Naruto forgot one very important thing: he was a ninja. He knew ninja killed and faced the danger of being killed, but the bad memories of his past caused him to forget that piece of information. But how do I move past this? Forget about the lives I have taken? Asked Naruto, seeking guidance through Tsunade. Tsunade sighed before taking off his glasses and wiping the lenses on the scarf around his neck. He breathed in slightly, before putting them back on and leveling a stern expression at Naruto. To be honest, I don't know, said Tsunade, which caused Naruto to clench the sheet again. However, I do know that you need to find a way to cope with it. While I never killed anyone, to cope with the oppression of Gato and death of my son-in-law and of my grandson's innocence, I drink, said Tsunade, somewhat upset. Naruto absorbed this piece of information, and with it came many revelations. Tsunade's drinking, Jiraiya's peeping, Kakashi and his porn, Asuma's smoking, Sasuke's obsession with revenge. Actually, that last one probably didn't apply, as Sasuke was like that before killing anyone. Naruto looked up and realized he had been thinking for a while now, while Tsunade has simply waited for a reaction. Thanks Tsunade, said Naruto, with a small, yet genuine smile. So brat, you never said what you were doing here, stated Tsunade. Hehe, guess you're right, said Naruto, as he scratched his head sheepishly. Well, asked Tsunade with a raised eyebrow. Whatever Tsunade was expecting, he certainly didn't expect what Naruto was going to say next. Oh, I got banished, said Naruto sadly. What? Shouted Tsunade in shock and surprise. Yeah, I was heading to the village hidden in the mist before I was attacked. Only thing was, when I was walking, I realized that I had no idea where mist is, said Naruto. Well, I could give you a map of the area. It shows wave and the neighboring villages around it, including the general location of mist, which is in the land of water, said Tsunade. Really? That would be awesome, said Naruto in elation. Tsunade smiled. Glad to have you back, kid, thought Tsunade, before he left Naruto to pack. Line break. Naruto had packed up his things, making sure he had everything with him from the leaf, as well as some vegetable sushi that Tsunami had made for him quickly, and the map Tsunade had given him. Naruto was heading west to the edge of wave through a forest which had barely any light getting through the canopy, as the trees were so clustered together. Since he didn't have a lot of money with him and didn't want to borrow from Tsunade after his abrupt visit, he decided to run across the water from wave to the land of water. He figured that with his insane reserves he could make it. Wow, said Naruto in awe, as emerged at a clearing. He looked upon a vast ocean glittering in the sunlight. There was not a lot of separation between the forest and the ocean, only having 1 meter of sand between them. Naruto sat down and quickly pulled out 2 vegetable sushi, which he ate at a sedate pace, while admiring the beauty of nature. As he finished them, he stood up and dusted his hands, letting the crumbs fall to the ground. He tightened his backpack and made sure all his scrolls were firmly affixed to his waist. Well, here goes, thought Naruto as he started channeling chakra to his feet. He took a step onto the water, before looking behind him. Guess I won't be seeing land for a while, thought Naruto, before he turned around and started running on the water towards the land of water. Line break. Naruto ran for hours until the majesty of nature he observed before his run became an endless expanse of blue nothingness. How far is it? Thought Naruto in boredom. Through his boredom, however, he never noticed the 3-meter wave approaching him from the left until it was right above him. Ah fu, Naruto started to say, before the wave hit him and knocked him out. Line break. It could have been seconds, or even days, as Naruto had no idea how long he was knocked out for. All he knew when he woke up was that he reached land. Woo-woo land, exclaimed Naruto, as he stood up and pumped his fist. Naruto started to run forward, believing he had arrived at the land of water, but slowly realized something. Wait a minute. If this is the land of water, why is everything in ruins? said Naruto aloud. In fact, ruins, was putting it mildly. What remained of the buildings was cracked and broken, with most having been leveled to their very foundations. Not a single tree of the few present were standing, and many of the boulders around were smashed with deep gouges in them. Man, it looks like a war zone here, said Naruto, as he walked through the destruction. The further in Naruto walked, the worse the scenery looked until he arrived at a completely barren area with deep gouges going through the ground. Unbeknownst to Naruto, had he looked at the ground from a higher vantage point, he would have seen the very same symbol on his back gouged into the ground. Well, might as well eat something, said Naruto as he sat down. He pulled out an apple from his bag and a kunai from the pouch on his leg and started peeling the apple. He ate his first apple and then pulled out another as he wasn't full yet. As he peeled the second apple, he accidentally cut his thumb. Well, that's irritating, said Naruto, as he looked at his thumb and noticed the cut wasn't deep but was long, going from the tip of his thumb to the base of it. Naruto flicked his hand to get rid of the blood while some landed on a gouge in the land. Naruto stood up and shouldered his backpack, while quickly devouring the apple. Well, I guess I should, began Naruto, before he felt dizzy and disoriented for a minute. Go, finished Naruto, as he blinked in confusion. Instead of seeing the barren wasteland he had just been sitting on, he now stood in front of a broken steel gate. The gate encircled what Naruto found reminiscent of the village hidden in the leaves. The buildings looked abandoned but seemed to be in relatively good shape. Naruto walked past the gate and around the buildings. For some reason, he felt drawn to the central building, which reminded him of the Hokage Tower. The front door of the tower was made from silver and had two red whirlpools carved into where doorknobs would have normally been. Wonder if this works the same way as the scrolls one got, said Naruto, as he bit his thumb and wiped it across both swirls, while pushing chakra through his thumb. The door opened inwards, allowing Naruto to see that the inside of the tower was relatively untouched. The wooden floor was painted a dark orange in color, the walls were red, and the ceiling was bright yellow. There was a small desk in the center of the room with a small lamp on it and two staircases on the side behind it, one to the left and one to the right. Naruto walked up the staircase to the right and passed 3 levels, before reaching the top of the tower. He saw a swirl on the center of the only door on the 4th level. Naruto once again bit his thumb and swiped it across the swirl while channeling chakra. The door opened and Naruto walked in. As he took his first step in, he felt a shiver run through his spine. He then instinctually jumped forward as a golem dropped down right where he had been standing previously. The golem was rather simple, with a circular torso and head, with a single eye in the middle of its forehead, 2 arms, and 2 legs which were left uncovered. In its right hand it held a sword, and in its left a scroll. Naruto stared at the golem and the golem stared back at him, before putting the scroll it was holding down in front of it. Naruto cautiously approached the scroll and grasped it. He unfurled it and looked at it. The golem then shattered and turned into dust. That was weird, thought Naruto, as he started to read the scroll. The only thing in the scroll was a map of the room with a wall circled. Naruto walked over to the wall where the circled section should have been, and saw a bookcase. He stood next to the bookcase and slowly pushed it away. After he moved the bookcase out of the way, he saw a swirl on the wall. By now, he knew exactly what to do and bit his thumb to draw blood once again. Man, I'm going to lose so much blood if this is the only way to get around, thought Naruto, as he swiped his hand across the wall. The wall rose and revealed a small space large enough to hold a small child. Inside the space was a rather long scroll. It was about as thick as the heaven scroll he had in the Chunin exams but was almost 2 meters long. Naruto carefully removed it, before opening it up on the floor. It looked like the scroll Jiraiya had Naruto signed to summon the toads. Naruto followed the same procedure he did last time, but unlike last time, after he signed his name, he felt his legs burn, before he closed his eyes and screamed in pain. Line break. When Naruto opened his eyes, he found himself on a largely uninhabited island which was surrounded by mountains. At the center of the area was a small bubbling pit reaching almost 10 meters in diameter. Naruto had no idea what happened to him and wandered closer to the pit, hoping to get some clue as to where he was. As he approached the pit, he saw that it was shining with all the colors of the rainbow at random. Wow, that's so cool, said Naruto in awe. As he finished speaking, a snout broke the surface of the water. Naruto jumped back and drew a kunai. The snout was followed by an eye, then a head, before the body of a dragon burst from the pit. The scales and eyes of the dragon glittered in a rainbow of colors. It had 2 spines on the back of its head which were a meter in length. It possessed smaller scales down its back and head while its tail had none. Its tail was 4 meters in length, which combined with the 6 meters of its body gave the 10-meter dragon a rather imposing presence. Its underbelly didn't show as many colors as the rest of its body and seemed to resemble the daytime sky, as it was a pale blue, with white and yellow flecks running through it. Its eyes were slitted, and its 30-centimeter white teeth were shining brightly, which eerily reminded Naruto of Lee. The dragon came forward, flapping his wings, which allowed Naruto to see its wingspan was 5 meters wide with a meter-length spine on the top of each wing. Naruto backed up while the dragon came forward and landed in front of Naruto, before looked at him with a piercing gaze. "Child, do you know where you are?" inquired the dragon in a deep baritone. Naruto was startled that it spoke and dropped his kunai in surprise. "Well, no," said Naruto abashed. "Well, you are in the summoning realm of the dragons. Based on your lack of knowledge of where you are, I assume the Uzumaki clan is gone," said the dragon. "Yeah, I can't be sure, but I think I am the last one, as I have never seen another Uzumaki before," said Naruto. The dragon closed its eyes in what Naruto perceived to be thought. After some time, the dragon came up with an idea and brought its tail forward before touching Naruto's forehead. Naruto was instantly bombarded with memories which were not his own. Naruto saw some red-headed people riding on dragons while making rapid brush strokes on paper. He saw different colored dragons, some being emerald in color, while others sparkled like diamonds. He saw many other memories, some of red-headed people using strange weapons, while others used a wide variety of jutsus, some similar to the lava ball he used against the Anbu, ice spears similar to the ones Haku could use, while others used a mist which literally dissolved the flesh and bones of invaders. "Whoa," said Naruto, as the dragon removed his tail from Naruto's head. "Yes, whoa indeed. What you just saw were the deeds of your ancestors and my fellow dragon brethren. You will notice that not all looked as I do, as there are 7 distinct types of dragons. Dragons such as me are capable of utilizing wind and ice techniques. Other dragons can use other techniques, but I believe they should tell you about their techniques themselves," said the dragon as Naruto recovered. "Oh, by the way, my name is Naruto Uzumaki," said Naruto, as he stuck his hand out to shake. "Oparu," said the dragon as it brought forward an appendage, with 4 claws jutting over what appeared to be fingers, to shake Naruto's hand, easily dwarfing it. "So can you teach me about how to use wind and ice techniques?" asked Naruto. Oparu nodded, before motioning Naruto towards the lake. "To start with, you need to freeze that lake for ice and split it for wind. Best you get started now," said Oparu. Naruto walked over to the lake and made his signature hand sign, causing 50 clones to appear. "Let's do it," said Naruto, before he and his clones proceeded to try and freeze and split the lake. He has lots of potential," thought Oparu, as he watched Naruto. Line break. 3 months later, in the Leaf Village. Line break. "What do you mean you don't know where he is?" shouted Tsunade at Jiraiya, who was looking at her solemnly from his seat on the windowsill. "Exactly what it sounds like, Tsunade. After leaving Wave, neither my spies nor I have spotted him anywhere. It is almost as if he vanished into thin air," said Jiraiya, truly perplexed. Tsunade sighed, before crossing her hands in front of her face and placing her chin on them. "All right, Jiraiya, as much as it pains me, forget about Naruto for now. However, as soon as he resurfaces, I want to be the first to know," said Tsunade, clearly upset. Jiraiya nodded and left. Line break. "So Kakashi, what are we going to do today?" asked Sasuke. Sasuke was wearing the same clothes he wore for the Chunin exams, minus the black strap that used to lie around his left hand and right calf. "Well, I was thinking of a ninjutsu spar without the Sharingan," said Kakashi. Kakashi had not changed at all in the 3 months Naruto had left, but if someone particularly observant looked at him, they could see he walked with a slightly defeated air about him. Sasuke got in a ready stance, while Kakashi started going through hand signs. Sasuke began making his own hand signs before launching a fireball at Kakashi, while Kakashi countered with a water dragon. I hope whatever you're doing is helping you achieve your goals, whatever they may be, Naruto. Thought Kakashi, as he dodged a barrage of kunai. Line break. Lord Danzo, we still can't find a trace of the Nine Tails. Said a kneeling figure. Send out 4 more men, we must find it immediately. Said Danzo, to which the figure nodded and disappeared. Line break. Well Naruto, I would say you have just about mastered ice and wind manipulation. In such a short time I may add. To gain mastery in 2 elements in 4 months is astonishing. Said Opparu in praise of Naruto's learning ability. Thanks Opparu. Said Naruto. Naruto had shot up in height now, being 1.5 meters tall, 10 centimeters taller than he was 4 months ago. So does this mean I need to go find the other dragons for my training? Asked Naruto. Actually, they need to accept you first. You see, you came to me first as you have a special bond with the Opal Dragons, being born in October. For the others though, they must decide themselves when they want to train you. Replied Opparu. So what should I do now? Go back to looking for Mist? Asked Naruto. I guess, but before you go, let me give you something, lift up your shirt. Said Opparu. Naruto obliged and Opparu touched the tip of his tail over Naruto's heart. There was a small flash of light, and a tattoo of an opal dragon was seen coiled around where his heart was. If you ever need me, just swipe some blood over your heart and pump some chakra into it and I will be there to aid you. Said Opparu with, what Naruto could only call, a smile. Thanks Opparu, I'll try and summon you out for some fun sometime. Said Naruto, eliciting an amused snort from Opparu. Opparu then stared Naruto in his eyes and Naruto felt his legs burn again, before he found himself back in the building he got his summoning contract from. Line break. Naruto walked back out the gate he entered from. He stopped momentarily and turned around, pulling out the map Tsunade had given him, before he quickly jotted down some lines from wave down to an unnamed land mass which he called Hidden Whirlpool Village. Now I hope this time I actually get to the land of water. Said Naruto, before he started running back to the coastline. Line break. After a now successful run, Naruto finally arrived at another land mass, which according to his map, was the land of water. Now how am I supposed to find the village hidden in the mist? Pondered Naruto aloud. Naruto started walking down the path which he noticed was devoid of any life, plant or animal. Despite this though, there seemed to be a constant humidity in the air. I guess this is how they can use water jutsu so easily. With all this moisture though, fire jutsu must be really hard to pull off. Thought Naruto. After a while, Naruto reached the end of the first island he arrived at, and water walked to the next one. This must be the main island I've been walking for hours. Thought Naruto. After walking for a little longer Naruto heard some explosions in the distance, before a stray explosive kunai landed near him, causing him to jump to the left quickly to avoid losing a limb. Okay, now I'm angry. Said Naruto, as he jogged in the direction of where the kunai came from. He arrived on the scene of 2 mist ninja fighting each other. That's odd. Why are mist ninja fighting each other? Thought Naruto. Die, rebel, shouted a slightly insane-looking mist ninja. His entire body excluding his face was covered in fish net and he wore a dark blue cloak over this. His headband which depicted 4 wavy lines was wrapped around his left wrist. He had a stocky build and wild black eyes. The other ninja appeared to be a middle-aged man with a patch over his right eye. He wore a talisman in each ear with, "To hear," written on them twice on each side. He also wore a striped shirt and pants with seemingly the same pattern, with a green robe over them. His blue hair was styled in a manner resembling a shark fin. Naruto silently and without any hand signs made 5 clones, having gained a degree of mastery over them during his training with Opparu. As the rebel approached a tree, Naruto and his clones jumped out and quickly tackled both ninja before giving them a chop to their necks knocking them out. Naruto tied them both up to separate trees next to each other, so they both faced him. Line break. After a surprisingly short amount of time, both ninja woke up. The rebel sat there calmly, while the other ninja was struggling against his bindings. Naruto coughed to gain their attention. "Untie me now," shouted the mist ninja who looked positively unhinged now. You seem to be the most rational one at the moment. Tell me, why are 2 mist ninja fighting each other? ordered Naruto, as he pointed at the blue-haired man. Given your headband, I assume you are from the Leaf, said the man. Banished, but go on, said Naruto, eliciting a raised eyebrow from the man. Well, there is a civil war in Mist between bloodline wielders such as myself and loyalists which think all bloodlines are a plague, said the ninja, giving a pointed look to the man next to him. Well, that throws a wrench into my plans of getting someone to train me in boil and lava release, muttered Naruto, causing both of them to look at him incredulously. More bloodline scum, spat the insane ninja. Our leader possesses boil and lava release. If you release me, I may be able to convince our leader to train you, if you help us out, propositioned the green-clad ninja. Naruto thought it over and figured it was a fairly reasonable offer. Okay, said Naruto, as he threw a kunai cutting the ninja's ropes. My name is Ao, said the green-clad ninja. Naruto Uzumaki, nodded Naruto, prompting a raised eyebrow and a look of deep thought to encompass Ao's face. Scum, you will all die, shouted the remaining Mist ninja. So what do we do with him? Asked Naruto. Well, we could kill him, or bring him back for interrogation to our camp, suggested Ao. Okay, said Naruto as he put his hand out and engulfed the man in a block of ice. The man gave a strangled gasp, before being frozen in ice. Ao coughed, prompting Naruto to look at him. Ao pointed at the block with a raised eyebrow. Oh, did I forget to mention I have ice release too and have full mastery over it? Asked Naruto. Ao nodded. Huh, so I did, said Naruto, who unraveled a scroll he had just pulled out and used a basic sealing technique he learned during his training with Oparu, from his mother's letter, to cause the ninja to disappear into the scroll. He then gestured for Ao to lead the way. Back in my day, people didn't unnecessarily flaunt their powers, thought Ao. Line break. After traversing through the misty area for an hour or so, they arrived at a clearing. Please close your eyes for a second, Uzumaki, said Ao. Naruto obliged but kept his awareness of the environment on high alert. Ao made a few hand signs, before pressing a specific area in the air near his head. As he did this, a genjutsu was released. You can open your eyes now, Uzumaki, said Ao. Naruto obliged and looked around, seeing a new area devoid of mist and heavily entrenched with trees, with a small stream going through them in a zigzagging pattern. Ao started to walk, following the path of the stream while Naruto followed. After some time, they reached a clearing full of activity. The expanse of land was mostly sand, with a small section covered in grass. The grassy area had 10 stumps driven into the ground which were being pounded away at by 10 Mist ninja. There were many ninja sharpening weapons, almost as though they were about to go to war very soon. There were also a few ninja carrying around boxes, no doubt filled with shuriken and kunai, to a tent. All wore similar clothing, including the grayish-purple mist flak jacket, dark blue sandals, dark black pants and forehead protectors, with the symbol of the Mist Village. All in all, Naruto counted about 300 ninja. Some of the ninja nodded to Ao and didn't question why he was with a stranger, leading Naruto to believe that Ao was some high up in rank. Surprising, since he was stuck fighting with one ninja who wasn't all that strong, thought Naruto. Ao and Naruto arrived at another tent than the one where the boxes were being taken. This tent was also more elegant and was a deep blue instead of the standard gray. A word of caution before you meet the leader of our rebellion. Do not mention anything remotely close to marriage or age. It won't end well, trust me, said Ao with a shiver. Naruto raised an eyebrow, but was otherwise unfazed. Ao walked into the tent while Naruto waited outside. There was a lot of muffled whispering before Ao stuck his head outside and gestured for Naruto to come in. Naruto obliged and took his first glance at the leader of the rebels. Line break. In the Leaf Village. Line break. Jiraiya was rushing to the Hokage Tower. Earlier in the day he had been relaxing in a quaint town just outside the Leaf Village, when one of his spies had told him Naruto had been sighted near the Land of Water. Needless to say, Jiraiya quickly left the town and headed straight to Tsunade. Jiraiya scaled the tower and jumped in through the window, surprising Tsunade. Jiraiya, begun Tsunade threateningly. Naruto, was all Jiraiya said, getting Tsunade to immediately change her expression to an eager one. Jiraiya continued, seeing Tsunade was listening, has been sighted near the Land of Water. I don't know what he is doing, but I think I should go to him now. Impossible, I can't have you being too far from the leaf at such a critical time," said Tsunade. Jiraiya looked to argue, but Tsunade cut him off before he could speak. "Look, until I can get his banishment reversed, there really is nothing we can do for him," said Tsunade sadly. "I understand that, Tsunade, but there is a duty I must do as his godfather," said Jiraiya. "Right, like you have been doing for his whole life," said Tsunade. Jiraiya was visibly hurt and took a moment to regain his bearings before speaking. "That was harsh, Tsunade," said Jiraiya, with a downtrodden expression. "Well, I need you to face the facts. He survived without any of us, so I'm sure he can do so again. Sai, look, Jiraiya, I want to help him as well. After all, he is the only reason I came back to this village, but we need to think rationally with our heads, not our hearts, as much as it may pain us," said Tsunade sadly. "Here I thought you wouldn't be a good Hokage," mumbled Jiraiya quietly, but still loud enough for Tsunade to hear. "Listen, Jiraiya, I know you want to help him, but we have to look after the village for now. Wait a few more months and then I'll see if we can afford to let you travel away from here without us being seen as weak," said Tsunade. "Fine," said Jiraiya sourly, before leaving. Line break. Back with Naruto. Line break. The leader of the rebellion was a slender, busty woman. She had green eyes and ankle-length, auburn hair styled into a herringbone pattern at the back, a top knot tied with a dark blue band, and with 4 bangs at the front. 2 bangs were short, with one covering her right eye, and 2 were long, crossing each other on her bust, just below her chin. She wore a long-sleeved, dark blue dress that fell just below her knees. It seemed to be closed at the front with a zip and was kept open on the front right side from the waist down. The dress only covered up to the upper part of her arms and the underside of her. Underneath, she wore a mesh shirt that covered more of her upper body than her dress, but stopped short of covering her shoulders and still left a sizable amount of cleavage on display. She also wore a skirt in the same color as her dress and underneath those, mesh leggings reaching down over her knees. Around her waist, she wore a belt with a pouch attached to the back on the left, along with high-heeled sandals and shin guards, reaching up over her knees, dark blue polish on her fingers and toes, with dark blue lipstick. I may not be as perverted as Jiraiya, but I bet he would give his right arm to be able to see this epitome of beauty before me, thought Naruto. Ao gave a worried glance to Naruto and looked at the woman, while the woman smiled. "What is it?" asked Naruto, cocking his head to the side, which the woman found cute. "Oh, nothing, just the fact that you called me the epitome of beauty, although I do wonder how you know Jiraiya," said the woman in a melodious voice. "Ah, I guess I said that out loud," said Naruto, avoiding the question about Jiraiya, receiving a nod from the woman and Ao. "My name is Mei Terumi, and you would be?" asked Mei. "Naruto Uzumaki," said Naruto, prompting a raised eyebrow from Mei as well. "I take it you and Ao are familiar with the exploits of the Uzumaki, as both of you raised an eyebrow upon hearing my name," stated Naruto. "That is correct, but how are you aware? Their village was destroyed, and their clan thought to be extinct long before you would have even been born," inquired Mei. "That's my secret for now," said Naruto as a slightly cold voice, causing the tension in the room to increase. "Very well, Uzumaki, you are entitled to your secrets, for now," said Mei, easing the tension. "So will you be able to train me in using boil and lava techniques?" asked Naruto, getting to why he even came to the land of water in the first place. "On one condition, you help us fight against the bloodline haters," said Mei. Naruto thought about it for a while and realized that helping out in this battle would definitely make it easier to become a mist ninja, assuming the bloodline wielders won, of course. If not, he would still get training in lava and boil techniques. "Very well, I accept," said Naruto with a nod. "Excellent, let the training begin," said Mei, with a smile that promised pain. "Before anyone says anything, the 3-month time skip is correct. When I come back to Naruto and say he has been training for 4 months, this is because a month passed between those 2 events. Chapter 3 Pain. Naruto was breathing heavily. Mei's idea of training was to show him the attack by demonstrating it on him. It turned out that the jutsu he had used on the Anbu was lava style, lava globs. It seems that he was actually able to launch multiple lava globs, rather than just one like he had assumed. Mei used this to her advantage when they were just starting out, as Naruto dodged one before letting down his guard, thinking she would have to make hand signs again before launching another. Boy had he been wrong. Lava style, lava globs, said Mei, before launching 7 different sized blobs of lava at Naruto. Damn it, said Naruto, before quickly sending chakra to his feet for a burst of speed to escape. The globs struck the ground, melting it slightly, before hardening, making the ground harder than before. Naruto then tried to make the same hand signs, but Mei's were quicker and thus his blue cape, which Mei had given him to wear so he could blend in, caught on fire. Naruto quickly threw it off, leaving him in only a short-sleeved blue shirt and dark navy pants. Earth style, hidden mole jutsu, said Naruto, before disappearing underground. Mei smirked before making more hand signs and jumping up, before blanketing the area in lava globs. Naruto, who was hiding underground, could only think, "Ah crap." Naruto quickly shot out of the ground, only to get kicked in the face by Mei and sent flying shoulder first into the ground, tearing up the sleeve of his shirt. "Remember Naruto, no jutsu except for the one we're practicing," said Mei, with her signature smile. "Man, this sucks," thought Naruto, as he popped his shoulder back into place. Fine. Lava style, lava globs, said Naruto, as he launched a single ball of lava at Mei. "Not good enough," said Mei, before she made the same hand signs Naruto had made, but instead of 1, launched 8 balls of lava at Naruto. "Damn it," cursed the former Leaf Ninja, as he backflipped to avoid the blobs. Upon impact with the ground, chunks of molten rock were launched into the air, forcing Naruto to use a substitution, lest he be struck. "No other jutsus," shouted Mei, before she launched 8 lava globs in a seemingly random direction. Naruto quickly spun in midair to avoid being melted by molten lava. "At this rate, I'll die before I master the jutsu," thought Naruto in exasperation. Naruto clenched his fist and started to run around Mei. "Alright, let's think, overloading this jutsu with chakra isn't working and using equal amounts of fire and earth-natured chakra is the only combination to create lava, so let's try building up the same amount of chakra and releasing it over a long period of time instead of all at once," thought Naruto as he got behind Mei. "Lava style, lava globs," said Naruto. Naruto launched a quarter of his gathered chakra while holding the rest back for an instant, sending out a head-sized blob of lava before launching half of what remained, sending out a slightly larger blob and then lastly, launching all he still had gathered up, releasing one last blob which was about the size of his torso. "Water style, water wall," said Mei, before opening her mouth wide and launching a torrent of water, which rose about 1 meter into the air, before spreading out 2 meters wide, blocking all the blobs of lava, which sizzled on impact as they quickly cooled. "About time you launched more than 1 blob. You're a pretty slow learner," said Mei. "I hardly call being shown a jutsu by having it demonstrated on you until you can do it teaching," said Naruto, as he crossed his arms. "Well, in any case, it worked. Although you still need to work on it, as you should eventually be able to launch 4 at least," shrugged Mei nonchalantly. The blonde simply huffed and looked away. Mei started walking and Naruto followed after a while. She led him back to their main base so they could prepare for one of their assaults. Line break. Naruto now hid behind a small outcrop of rocks overlooking a camp of Yaguras. The area was largely dominated by pale beige tents. "Ready, Naruto?" asked Ao. "Sure, this'll be easy," said Naruto, while inwardly questioning whether he would be able to do what he had to. Line break. Flashback. Line break. "So Ao, you and Naruto will take out Yagura's most eastern camp. Any ideas, considering the camp holds about 50 men?" asked Mei. "Well, I can make an indiscriminate number of clones, so I don't think numbers will be an issue," said Naruto vaguely, not wishing to divulge all his secrets. "Well, Ao?" asked the brunette. "I believe I could make water clones to help Naruto track down Yagura's men, as well as any prisoners," said Ao vaguely as well, not mentioning his Byakugan to a potential enemy. Line break. End flashback. Line break. "Am I really going to be able to kill 50 men?" pondered the blonde. "Alright, there are 10 tents, so I'll make 10 water clones. With each clone, send 5 of your clones," stated Ao sternly. Naruto quickly crossed his fingers and made 50 clones, thankful that it was dark so Ao couldn't see his hand movements. When the clones appeared, Ao's uncovered eye widened. Each clone has an equal amount of chakra. This is very different to the water clone jutsu. Thought Ao, trying to remember where he had seen a similar clone jutsu. Move out, said Ao, as all the clones quickly proceeded to the tents. Now let's go scope out the perimeter to make sure no one is hiding, said Ao, to which Naruto nodded. Line break. The first group of clones came upon a tent which housed 5 ninja. They quickly proceeded to end their lives. The Naruto clones did so by using ice manipulation and froze all the water in the bodies of the soon-to-be dead ninja, causing their internal organs to burst, killing them instantly. 5 down, whispered a Naruto clone. More to go, said the Ao clone, before both types of clones dispelled. Line break. That's 5 taken care of, Naruto informed Ao, after receiving the memories of his clones. Ao nodded while inwardly thinking, he received their memories as well. Line break. The next set of clones proceeded to quickly slit the throats of the 5 in the tent before dispelling. Line break. The third group however had a problem. 2 are missing, said the clone of Ao, before turning into water due to being hit with a kunai to the back. Quickly clones, said one of Naruto's clones, before they charged. Water style, water wall, said one of the ninjas using the water from Ao's clone. One of Naruto's clones who had charged in an attempt to engage in taijutsu was dispelled by the wall, alerting all the others as well as the original. Alright, no more messing around, ice style, 1,000 needles of death, said all 4 of the remaining clones, while slamming their feet on the ground causing the water on the ground to shoot up in a manner similar to what Haku had employed. The water now floating in the air sharpened into needles, but unlike Haku's jutsu, they hardened and turned into ice. The clones all jumped back and the 2 ninja were skewered. Mistake corrected, said the main clone, before they all dispelled. Line break. That's 15 now. Although the third group had a problem, 2 were awake, we need to proceed more carefully, there might be more awake, said Naruto. Very well, said Ao, before he discreetly activated his hidden Byakugan. It seems there is one other ninja not in a tent, high Junin chakra levels, best we take out all other ninja to avoid interference, said Ao. Alright, I'll take out the ninja not in a tent, you make sure no one escapes from this camp, said Naruto. Ao hesitated for a moment, before nodding slightly. Naruto nodded, before heading off in the direction Ao was looking. Does he have a bloodline? Thought Naruto, as he quickly and quietly ran. I need to be more careful, he might catch on to my Byakugan considering he is from the leaf, thought Ao, before heading off in the opposite direction to ensure there were no survivors. Naruto slowed his run to a walk, before stopping cold. About 5 meters from his position, he could just barely make out the silhouette of a person. The figure was wearing a black short-sleeved shirt and dark blue pants which flared out before tightening around the ankles. The figure had a medium-sized bust indicating that the person was a female and had long dark purple hair which reached to the middle of her back. She was easily taller than Naruto and had long legs which led to a perfectly heart-shaped posterior. She had pale fair skin, no doubt a result from being in a village shrouded in mist. All in all, she was a rather beautiful woman. As Naruto approached, she opened her eyes and stared intently at him, with a pair of dark blue eyes which unnerved Naruto. As he approached, he was able to make out her face, it was rather pale and didn't have a single wrinkle. Her face was rather thin, making her cheekbones more pronounced, as well as her small nose and chin. You hold a bloodline, don't you, scum? She stated in a bone-chilling voice devoid of emotion. If I do? Asked Naruto with a raised eyebrow. You will die, she said slowly and calmly, as though death meant nothing to her. I won't die here, not until, started Naruto, before trailing off as he begun to think about his purpose. In the past, he only wanted to be Hokage, but now that goal seemed well beyond his reach. Why do I live, for what purpose? Thought Naruto. Sure, the blonde had his friends, but unfortunately for him, he could count them all on 2 hands, not to mention the fact that almost all were in the Leaf Village, which he couldn't return to. Gaara, is this how you felt? Thought Naruto in empathy, now remembering his slightly unstable friend who killed others to feel alive. The woman sensed Naruto's distraction and charged at Naruto with a roundhouse kick, making full use of her reach. Naruto blocked and used her momentum to swing her around and launch her back in the direction she charged from. I am no longer able to protect my friends in the leaf and I'm sure Gaara can take care of himself now that his siblings are no longer afraid of him. thought the whiskered blonde, as he dodged an elbow, before retaliating with an uppercut and super kick, launching his foe backwards. My parents are long dead, and I haven't heard of any other Uzumaki anywhere. Contemplated the former leaf ninja, as he jumped over a front sweep, before nailing his foe with a vicious axe kick, which dislocated her shoulder. Water style, water dragon jutsu. Said the woman is a 3-meter-long dragon of water charged at Naruto, who dodged to the side, before throwing 10 kunai at his foe and quickly sinking into the ground, hidden by some of the water, which had risen up into the air when the water dragon crashed near him. Naruto crept underground, moving through the ground as though it was water, until he was directly under the ninja. Sure, I could complete the Rasengan like my father wanted me to, but why bother? What's the point? Wondered Naruto, before his hands shot out and clamped onto a set of ankles, before the person they belonged to was dragged down into the ground until only their head was visible. Naruto quickly popped out of the ground and squatted down, placing his kunai under her chin, so the tip was just under it. Tell me, for what reason do you live? Asked Naruto in a subdued voice. I live to be of service to my cage and protect the world from bloodline scum like you. Spat the mostly buried ninja. I no longer have a cage. Thought Naruto wistfully. That is enough, Naruto, we can take her back for interrogation now. Said Ao, who had only recently arrived. Naruto nodded and absent-mindedly pocketed his kunai, before standing up. Is life meaningless, or do I have some purpose which I have not yet learnt of? Questioned Naruto, now being able to think without having to fight at the same time. Ao placed a chakra suppression tag on their captive before pulling her out of the ground and motioning for Naruto to head back to base. Naruto absent-mindedly followed, while continuing to think along the way. Line break. Naruto was sitting inside one of the larger tents which had been modeled into a bar. Get me your strongest drink, said the blonde as he sat down on a stool. The bartender put down a small glass and poured a small amount of liquor. Naruto blinked repeatedly, before leveling a suspicious glare at the bartender, almost expecting him to laugh and reveal he had been playing a prank on him. However, when he met Naruto's gaze impassively, Naruto shrugged before downing the contents of the tiny glass. Naruto's throat burned for a second and felt slightly dizzy, before he felt the liquor being purged from his system. Naruto sighed inwardly, while cursing the fox for making it impossible for him to become intoxicated, before paying the bartender and walking out of the tent. Damn, there is nothing to do around here, complained Naruto as he walked around, noticing that aside from training or drinking, there was nothing for him to do. Wish I had another book, hell, I'd even settle for what the old perv calls literature. Thought the former leaf ninja, as he continued walking. Eventually, he found himself back at the main tent, which was right next to his and opposite Mei's. Naruto hesitated for a second, before deciding to visit Mei, reasoning that she didn't have much to do either. Naruto considered knocking first, but then realized it was a freaking tent, so there was nothing to knock on, so Naruto settled for simply walking in. Mei was inside and appeared to have just had a bath, if the steam in the room was any indication. Well, I guess she could be training in boil release techniques. Rationalized the bored ninja. After a while, the steam faded, and Mei was revealed wrapped in a towel while using another towel to dry her long hair. Doesn't it get annoying to dry so much hair every time you have a shower? Asked Naruto tactlessly. Mei looked up suddenly, clearly not expecting any company, but after seeing it was only Naruto, resumed her previous task. Not really, I find it relaxing, replied Mei, as she moved over to her bed in the center of the tent, before sitting down on it. Naruto shrugged his shoulders, not really caring, while looking at Mei. You know, most men would be foaming at the mouth upon seeing me in nothing but a towel, Mei said offhandedly, hoping to get a reaction from Naruto. Humph, whatever, replied the blonde, emulating a certain brooding Uchiha. Mei frowned slightly before speaking. That is a rather different reaction given your words from the first time you met me. Were you lying then? Asked Mei with narrowed eyes. No, I meant what I said, you do epitomize beauty, in my eyes at least, said Naruto, getting a smile from Mei. I just find it hard to care at the moment given my current dilemma. Finished the blonde ninja, drawing a frown from Mei. Oh, what dilemma would that be? Asked Mei, as she finally finished drying her hair and wrapped the towel around her head, before looking for clothes to wear. Reason, will, purpose, retorted the bored ninja vaguely. Meaning, said Mei, as she gestured for Naruto to turn around while she changed. I no longer have a reason to live and thus have lost my will as I do not have a purpose in life. Said Naruto. Oh, why is that? Asked the brunette. I have been banished from my village which contains almost all my friends, whom, coincidentally can all be counted on my 2 hands, while those not a part of my former village really don't have any need for me at the moment. Replied the blonde. Well, that doesn't explain why you have no reason to live or purpose. Probed Mei, wanting more from the enigma behind her. I only live to be Hokage and after some advice, to protect those precious to me as well. How can I protect those in a village which I can't enter? It would be quite difficult, wouldn't it? Replied Naruto, not really caring about withholding information anymore, due to his current state of mind. Why not find a new purpose, or new precious people? Suggested the female ninja. I never found a purpose in the first place, nor precious people, both found their way to me through the actions of others. Replied Naruto. You can turn around now. Said the now blue-clad woman. So now I find myself with nothing to do. I can't even get drunk. Said Naruto, with his tone becoming slightly whiny at the end. Why is that? Asked Mei, not really curious, but merely trying to keep the conversation going. Naruto paused, having an internal debate as to whether he should reveal his jinchūriki status. Certain events at birth have led to me being immune to alcohol. Replied Naruto vaguely. Why do you want to get drunk anyway? Asked the brunette. It was just a whim, I hoped it would help pass the time until the next raid or training session. Replied the blonde uncaringly. Mei's lips shrunk, becoming a thin line, while her eyes narrowed. Most would take advantage of any spare time and seek to better themselves rather than indulging in whims. Commented the green-eyed beauty while inwardly frowning. I thought about it, but then figured, why? For what reason should I better myself? Quite frankly, after this civil war is over, I won't have anything to do. In fact, the only reason I came here was to gain a better understanding and hopefully, control over my bloodlines, but that's superfluous now. Stated the blue-eyed blonde using one of Oparu's favorite words. Mei was rather taken aback at Naruto's complete disregard and lack of care for anything. Then why stay, why not leave? Asked Mei angrily. Well, aside from the reason I just gave you, I did say I would help you against the bloodline haters if you trained me and you have, though your methods are questionable. So even though I have no purpose, I still have my honor and I will stick to my words and see this war through to the end. Who knows, if luck is on my side, I may die in the final battle. Said Naruto, before Mei stood up and quickly slapped him. Naruto was surprised by the rash action and simply stared at the emerald eye which the brunette was glaring heatedly from. How can you be so callous towards your own life? Does it mean nothing to you? Asked Mei angrily. What is a life? To no longer have any use to anyone, to no longer have a goal, that is not a life, it is merely existence. Replied the blonde with a hollow tone. Mei was quite frankly stunned and couldn't think up an opposing argument despite knowing she was very much against Naruto's view. Speechless. Tell me, what is your purpose in life? Asked Naruto. I wish to end the bloodshed in the village hidden in the mist and rebuild it, in order to reclaim its strength and prestige as one of the 5 great nations. Said Mei passionately. Then what? Asked Naruto, confusing Mei. What do you mean? Asked Mei. I mean, what will you do after you achieve your goal? At most that would only take 10 years, so what then? Asked Naruto, probing Mei, hoping to find something that could help him regain a purpose in life. Mei paused and thought about her goals after ending the war, and only one thing really came to mind: to have a family. Mei thought. Naruto waited, hoping to receive an answer, and after hearing none, sighed. You see, you don't have anything to live for after mist is restored either, at least you have that though. Quite frankly, after this war, I really have nothing left to do, so what then? Become a mercenary, why, for fame or money, why bother? Continued the blonde, while shrugging his shoulders at the end. In any case, I'll go now, since I'm sure you have better things to do. Said Naruto, before he left Mei's tent for his own to sleep, leaving behind an angry and confused brunette. Line break. In the village hidden in the leaves. Line break. What? Sasuke has left the village. Shouted Tsunade, towards a despondent Sakura. Yes, Lady Hokage, he left last night. I don't know why he would leave. Said Sakura on the brink of tears. Damn it. Anbu, Get me Shikamaru Nara immediately. Ordered Tsunade, as an Anbu appeared in front of her and bowed, before vanishing. Sakura, you can go now. Said Tsunade. Sakura considered protesting, but then thought better of it and gave a slight nod before leaving. Darn, without Naruto, I don't know if they're going to be able to get him back, better get some outside help. Thought Tsunade, before taking out a scroll and writing a mission aid request for the village hidden in the sand. Line break. Naruto found himself in a sewer. Oh great, it's that bloody fox. Thought Naruto in annoyance, as he had been enjoying his sleep. Naruto begrudgingly walked until he found himself in front of Kyuubi's cage. Sai oi, Fuzzy, what do you want? Shouted an irate Naruto. Mortal, how dare you speak to me like that? Shouted the fox, coming into Naruto's view. Yeah, whatever, what do you want already? Said Naruto with a bored glance, even having the audacity to clean out his left ear with his pinky in boredom. Kyuubi growled and slammed into the cage at the blatant disrespect. You want to become suicidal, then so be it, but do it after I'm no longer trapped inside you. You want a goal, a reason to live, fine. The murderer of your parents is still alive. Shouted the fox, before his tone became positively mocking. Naruto's eyes widened and he looked straight at Kyuubi, whose face was akin to the cat that caught the canary. I see that piqued your interest, so here's the deal, you finish up with your stupid human war and defeat the holder of the, as you would call it, 3 tails, and I'll tell you some information about the night of your birth. Said Kyuubi, while staring at Naruto. Naruto nodded. Excellent, now leave. Shouted the fox, before it expelled Naruto from its domain. Line break. Well, who would have thought the fox would hold the answer to my reason for existence? Said Naruto aloud after waking up. I guess if there is no one for me to protect, vengeance against the person who killed my parents and made my life hell will suffice, for now. Said Naruto darkly, before he stood up and walked out of his tent towards Maze. It was still about 6 in the morning, so the camp was relatively quiet, but there were about 10 early birds such as him, who were out and about, beginning their daily routines. Along the way, Naruto couldn't help but think of an individual who shared his mentality. Hey, never thought I would ever be able to empathize with Sasuke. Thought Naruto, as he walked to Mei's tent. Upon arriving, he walked straight in and sat on the empty bed, waiting for her to show up. Line break. Mei opened her eyes after having a rather troubling night. She had stayed up for almost an hour trying to think about what could be done to fix the moody blonde. Granted, he wasn't one of their ninjas, but he was a powerful asset nonetheless. After waking up, Mei quickly got up and washed her face before heading back to her bed, only to find Naruto sitting on it. Naruto, seeing her, stood up and walked until he stood about 1 meter away from her. I am the jinchūriki of the Kyuubi and have complete mastery over the shadow clone jutsu. Upon dispelling, the clones transfer everything they learnt back to the original, including jutsu knowledge. I want you to push me to my limit and teach me as much as you can as fast as you can. Said Naruto in a demanding tone. Mei was taken aback at this new knowledge and slightly irked at the fact that he was demanding something from her. A moment later, however, Mei gave her sickly sweet smile before saying, very well, let the pain begin. That's it for this part of the story. If you enjoyed this fanfic and want the next part soon, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Comment down below what you think will happen next in Naruto's journey. See you in the next part.